During the Cerebral Valley AI Summit, we asked a group of founders and investors, which billion-dollar AI startup would you short? And their answers caused a bit of a stir. Joining me today are my Cerebral Valley AI co-hosts and the co-founders of Volley, Max, Child and James Wilsterman. We'll also be diving into some of the insights from our panelists throughout the conference, my interview with Mike Krieger, the Chief Product Officer at Anthropic, former co-founder of Instagram, about the problem with sycophancy and foundation models.
My wife got her first, you're completely wrong. And she was like, yes, this is great. And I think we should have more of that.
Right. We looked at a clip from the mayor, who, the politician, won the adoration of the crowd.
No one should be asking someone that's been in a job for 10 months for advice.
And we ask, is Mecha Hitler inevitable? On stage with Jimmy Ba, one of the co-founders of Elon Musk's XAI. The Mecha Hitler in the room.
Yeah, Mecha Hitler, our model had an episode.
This is the Newcomer podcast. All right, I'm excited. We've had some time to rest since the Cerebral Valley AI Summit. Max has been resting lie flat. What? Literally just got home from Dubai, I believe.
Literally 10 minutes, got off a 16-hour-long flight over the world's greatest hits like Tehran and Moscow.
I've got my 7-week-old, so back to the parenting minds, though it's been a joy. James, are you well rested, or how are you feeling?
I'm not well rested, Eric. I have been solo parenting my 2-year-old for
where's your wife?
Week.
Where's Erin?
Brazil and Mexico.
Oh, nice.
So we've all got our own reasons to be tired.
We're at the exact level of delirious that the viewer should want here, because we just had the Cerebral Valley AI Summit, right? We host this twice a year, big AI, 300-person event, top AI founders, investors, real insider thing. We sent out a survey, became a point of media fascination, sources, Business Insider wrote about it. I think random Indian media outlets, for reasons that we'll explain as we progress. We had 300 attendees at the thing. I want to be clear, some of these things everybody did not fill out this anonymous survey. This was not academic research. You can count the dots for yourself and sort of infer how many people did this. I don't know. What are we saying? 30 to 40 people? I just want to be transparent, but it gives you a sliver of where this highly engaged audience thought things were. And part of the fun was that Max and I were on stage, sort of reacting to the survey results. Anyway, so we're going to dig into the survey. James, this was really your brainchild. Anything I missed about it, or you want to start ticking through the questions?
Yeah, I guess one fun part of the game that we played on stage was you and Max had to guess what the audience would think the answer to these questions might be. And I have to say, Max kind of ran away with that game on stage.
He did well.
I think I won 5-1, 4-1, something like that.
Max did well. Yeah.
It was a dominant.
Some of them were close. Let's go through. We can talk about, you did very
well. we can react to the reactions.
Myself. Despite Max's dominance, I think I had my ear on the pulse still. All right. Should we start with the beginning?
Yeah. So the first question was, what will OpenAI's annualized revenue be at the end of 2026? The audience median was 30 billion.
And it's 20 billion 2025 is the expectation, right?
Yeah, over 20 billion already. So this is pretty low estimate, in my opinion.
And I said 40, or what did I say?
Yeah, I forget who said 40, and one of us said 40 and one of us said 41.
One, right?
You did beat me on this
you.
one. Yeah. I went higher, maybe 41 or something. I was surprised. I think that given we're exiting this year at 20 in OpenAI, I thought the effusive glee and bubble talk of the conference would flow through to a growth
and Nvidia,
projection.
It just beat earnings.
OpenAI.
Things are going well. We're round tripping all day. Everybody's making money. Revenue's not the problem.
Mere 50% growth for OpenAI, I think, would be considered an atrocity at this point in the bubble cycle. So
I'm betting on 40.
If this actually happens, I think the bubble is over, baby.
What's your bet, Max?
I think 40 is what I said on the last podcast. I think we discussed. I mean, I think 2x year on year makes sense to me unless the bubble collapses.
I'm curious, where do you guys think the next 20 billion comes from? Is it business as usual, or do they need to create new products? Or
I don't know, copy Harvey, going to legal.
Yeah.
Anything. It's I think, they should lean into the API business, do this sort of general purpose foundation model. So I don't necessarily think they need to go after an application directly, but if they were really hungry for revenue, you'd think they'd figure out who their best partner is and say, screw it, we're going to cannibalize them to find the revenue we need.
Kind of seems like they're gearing up for that, Palantir model, or, find the biggest pockets of money in the world and, consult on how to adopt AI in those companies, right?
I mean, I think there's a lot of headroom on the consumer subscription business as well. I just think that, they haven't necessarily monetized, a huge percentage of the people who use AI every day, and they just keep adding value to that consumer subscription. And so, even if you just got a doubling of that would get you pretty far along the route here.
All right, next question. What will Nvidia be worth at the end of 2026? On the day we took this survey, it was 4.8 trillion. They just had earnings. I'm not actually sure what it is the day we're recording.
Let's look it up.
It's pretty close.
They had pretty good earnings, I think, but I don't think Wall Street.
Yeah, I checked. The stock's like 4.5, 4.6 right now or something.
4.35 trillion.
So down.
3.5. So down a little bit. Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's they beat earnings, and then they still, the expectations are so insane. I said 5, I think. Max, what did you say?
I said 6, which was dead on the money, if I recall.
Yeah.
Yep. So the audience had a median of 6 trillion. Very few outliers on the high end there.
5 was the next biggest grouping. Also, interesting. Median was just so large. That's really.
It's just so many people said
if it was
6.
average, average is obviously thrown off by this like 100 trillion as a troll. But forget that one.
I think based on the performance of the recent earnings, I think this is actually high for reality. Like they crushed the recent earnings as we discussed, and the stock barely went up on a multi-day period. So if they're not going up, 10% a quarter, essentially, they're not going to hit this number. And I just don't see that if those earnings aren't moving the stock up. So this actually feels high for reality to me. 5 is hard because you're sort of like, you're chickening out on saying it's all going to blow up. And, it's like, what is this reality where either it's like, oh, the mania has continued, or there's a pullback. In some ways, my 5 trillion feels like sort of a weird, sort of sane
middle ground
world. But who knows? Obviously, if you knew the answer to this, you could be unlimitedly. You could have an unlimited amount of wealth. So nobody knows. But this is what a couple people think.
What year will an independent committee of experts, as dictated by the Microsoft OpenAI agreement, declare that we have reached AGI?
I thought this was a funny question because at once it's such a silly idea, like, oh, we're going to have AGI, but there's an actual contractual agreement between Microsoft and OpenAI that there's a committee to resolve this, and big business, dealings hang on it. And so it's a specific question, which is sort of funny.
This was one of my favorites because you guys were trying to guess what the audience will try to guess what Microsoft and OpenAI will decide is AGI. There's a lot of layers of prognostication going on here. So what did you guys say? You said much higher.
I said 2035. I believe.
Yeah, I said 29. So I was pretty close to the median of 2030.
What do you guys think in retrospect? Like, is this is too early, or?
I just feel like a theme of Cerebral Valley in the beginning, we started in 2023 in March 2023 after ChatGPT. That was probably the conference we talked most about AGI. And then we talk about it less and less every time. It's like there was so much enthusiasm when the models came out. And now we're in this sort of like, oh man, this is exactly like self-driving cars where you feel really close. And then there's a lot of edge cases to hammer out. And so I just think AGI pessimism has gone way up. And you add to that Andre Karpathy's sort of thing. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't think the insider vibes are like AGI tomorrow unless you're talking to Dario or something.
I think the interesting thing here is that there's basically just two buckets of people. One is 2030 or sooner, which are like the accelerationists, and then one is like 2045 or never, which is like the decelerationist or the pessimist or whatever you want to call them. Maybe the realists.
Exactly.
Whereas you sort of hit this exact thought that basically nobody was, which was 10 years from now or whatever, but it's still going to happen. Which is an interesting, that you sort of of found the middle of this smiling curve where you're either an optimist or you're a pessimist, and you kind of tried to hit the middle, and it didn't quite work.
That's interesting.
We have more optimists at our conference was the end result.
That's why Max beat me. He understood that was the psychology of the answer right there. Yeah, exactly right.
Optimistic conference.
There's something slightly interesting comparing it to the self-driving car world, like you said, though, Eric, because, self-driving cars are basically useless until they reach, parity or capability of human drivers.
Right, where this is not like that.
This is not. This is like, it just happens to have all these other very targeted, more verticalized use cases that are super valuable, but
100%.
Not with the full human replication. Yeah.
Which is why I was negative about self-driving cars because it was annoying because you need them to actually work. Whereas this, I've been very enthusiastic. So yeah, I agree. That's what's beautiful about text versus safely delivering humans places, which thankfully now Waymo is good at, and we can celebrating it. But 10 years ago or whatever, it was annoying marketing.
I like that. Okay, next question. Which venture capital firm's AI portfolio are you the most jealous of? I think this was kind of a shocker, right? Neither of you guessed A16Z, which tied with Khosla for the lead here. Obviously,
we both said Thrive, right?
Yeah, and then we both
decided to do a
as our
tiebreaker.
second pick or something.
No,
yeah,
I said Sequoia.
You said Sequoia, and I said Khosla.
And that's why you won this.
Yeah, I got the kicker on that one.
Yeah, that was a good poll, Max. How did you decide to pull Khosla? Just OpenAI, or?
I did some ChatGPT research beforehand, and then
Khosla was the first in OpenAI,
Right.
first venture investor in OpenAI.
Yeah,
but that round has gotten significantly diluted, and I'm sure they'll be reporting over time. I don't know how much they've done secondary. It was one of these fantastic investments, but it feels like they got squashed down by later stage rounds and all these negotiations.
I think we can all agree, though, the Andreessen, tie for victory with Khosla is pretty bizarre because, there's not a lot of really notable, successful Andreessen AI investments compared to most of these other firms.
I got a text from somebody when I shit on Andreessen on stage, which is funny. What's wrong with this?
Like
portfolio?
live on stage?
No, right after I went off, but which it's like, oh, people are paying attention. Yeah, I don't know. Andreessen, they have, I can't list. They had Character. They have like SSI. I'm sure they have a ton. Some of them are later. It's like they're in OpenAI. They're in XAI.
I just think the lesson of our draft was like the only thing that matters is basically being heavy in Anthropic, XAI, or OpenAI, and like they're not really in any of those, right? It was my understanding.
They're probably big in XAI. Are they big in XAI?
I think that they're in X, but I don't think they're huge.
Yeah,
and these are all growth.
Sequoia
deals.
was pretty big. Yeah,
Sequoia has some money.
All I'm saying is, to me, it feels like the PR of Andreessen generally is sort of overwhelming the actual portfolio. It's
right.
It's
I
good
think
to be
Thrive is doing really well. They've done these huge bets in OpenAI, like big,
right? Yeah,
pre all the markups. So I bet they're doing really well, and would like to substantiate that. Thrive, reach out. All the they mentioned a bunch of firms like it's like Alad Gill, who we had on stage, is obviously great. Index Ventures. Some of these, like, who knows, some partner, said them themselves.
I'm personally jealous of this slide because it would be a great cap table for a startup. Just have all these names.
Have every single person on the slide in your company. Yeah, sounds good.
And benchmark doesn't make sense to me necessarily for AI portfolio, but no. They have Mercor now.
Mercor, Langchain, I don't know.
But okay. As I'm about to preview, I do think brand, like having a big brand, who gets an answer on a survey? Somebody has large mind share, and this is why surveys are imperfect. Research mechanisms. So we're about to see name recognition is everything here.
If you could put money in any private technology companies today, what would they be? So the top 10 by far the first was Anthropic, followed by OpenAI, and then Cursor. Those are the top 3. Rounding out the top 5 was Anduril and SpaceX.
Open Evidence is interesting. Then Perplexity, Replit, Stripe, XAI. Max and I both said Anthropic, right?
Yes.
I feel like tiebreaker. First of all, I was idiotic on the tiebreaker because I picked a really random company nobody was ever going to pick. I said fireworks, which was clearly just like if I were going to make the bet. I don't know what I was thinking. Max, you picked Cursor.
Cursor. Yeah, went with the momentum play.
I think we had one pick. This tiebreaker thing, I was not pre-negotiated. I didn't come in with a tiebreaker, so I didn't do so poorly here.
But you both kind of agree with the audience on Anthropic.
I mean, it's an interesting question because Anthropic is only, valued at, what is it, 350 billion compared to OpenAI's 500 now, right? They're starting to get pretty pricey comparatively speaking, and I know their revenue growth has been unbelievable, and I think their mind share in Silicon Valley again among developers, and there is this sort of like undercurrent of like they're like the ethical AI company, quote unquote, with the cool hip branding in the West Village. It is a bit strange to me that they're substantially bigger, than OpenAI in the votes here, because I just think that the hipness of Anthropic is maybe outweighing the fact that
Silicon Valley is more bullish on Anthropic than most of America, clearly.
Of course. Yeah. But I just think, if you were an honest assessment of the valuation compared to the revenue versus OpenAI would say like, hey, you might just want to take the momentum play and bet on OpenAI. Right. So it was a bit of a, let's guess what the hip Silicon Valley one is. And you and I both correctly guessed the hip Silicon Valley one was Anthropic. Yeah.
What global company's model will top the LLM Arena web development leaderboard at the end of 2026?
We had an excellent conversation with some insiders in the data labeling space the night before who said that LLM Arena is an incredibly gameable metric, and it's because it's basically voting from users whether or not they liked the response or not. And so it's very susceptible to, some might call it glazing, others might call it sycophancy towards the user. And their belief was that OpenAI was heavily over-optimizing to glazing their users and therefore was continuing to do well in these types of rankings, which I thought was an interesting point, which is why I think I chose OpenAI for this.
And did well. The answers are OpenAI, Anthropic, Google Gemini, XAI, and then Alibaba. We made sure to say global to try and induce some Chinese answers, but they didn't rank high. So
I just think this was basically what the rankings were during the day the survey was taken. Like nobody was really going out too far on a limb that this would be radically different next year. But I think that's interesting because my understanding is now Gemini ranks higher than OpenAI, a week later, right? So I bet you'd see a lot more people guessing Gemini.
These insiders needed to be more aware. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I wish Gemini had come out before the conference. Well.
Why do you wish that?
Well, I just think Google would have leaned in and talking about it. It also would have been giving us like a current, we had plenty to talk about. It was one of my favorite events, but like, it's a
lot
big
to talk
happening
about a week
in the
later,
AI
right?
world that happens a week after. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
All right. If you could short a $1 billion valuation startup, which would it be?
Before
This
we answer
went
this,
viral.
Before we answer this question, let me say, having just gotten off the 16-hour plane ride from the United Arab Emirates, this was brought up to me multiple times apropos of nothing
It's
in
reached the
conversations
broader world.
with venture capitalists and investors
Fill out our
of
anonymous surveys.
of all stripes. They had no idea I'm associated with the conference. They had no idea that this was something that I was personally like on stage for the reveal of this information. So this not just went viral, this literally traveled around the world faster than, as fast as the speed of light, the answer to this question. And I think other journalists probably made millions of dollars off of this, and Eric maybe didn't.
No.
Well, I don't know.
How much money do you think we will make off stories? This is
yeah,
media
maybe
business.
not. Maybe
Jesus
not.
Christ, they'd be lucky if they made 10,000. I mean, they didn't make any money.
I meant Business Insider. I meant business.
Monetized it to the tune of $20,000. I'd be impressed.
All right. I meant Business Insider if they have a sub plan, which I believe they do.
Sure.
Converted hundreds of subs off of ripping off our survey.
Yeah,
so congrats to Business Insider. So yes,
we're happy
with that,
to get the coverage. To be clear, thank you, Ben. Thank you for the coverage. Thank you,
Eric.
Alex.
How does this make you feel
covering.
about lists and rankings and types of stories you might write?
We played it as a fun game on stage, and I think our coverage in the newsletter reflected that it was like a fun game, and that's what we're talking about it here. This was not an academic survey. It was sort of provocative. And it's funny. I mean, in some ways, the media should be a little looser. It's like, oh, some insiders think this thing. But just like when things are turned into like journalese, it feels like official, like Silicon Valley has turned on Perplexity. It's like, I don't know, some random people who decide to fill out a survey, you know, that's what they said. But and Perplexity was on the bull list, you know, way lower. And I do think this means something that it was number one short. I mean, Perplexity, why is it number one? Super highly valued and doesn't have that gateway to the consumer. And people have tried to do browsers forever. You know, it's like people have failed and, you know, Google, Chrome and Safari and Explorer dominate. So it's a very hard space. So yeah, there are some investors that are super bullish, but I think most people are like, how do they get distribution?
Yeah, the reason it's a short, right, is valuation, I think, to a large degree, right? It's valued at $20 billion, right? And whatever leaks have come out about the revenue from the inside, you know, there's some debates of whether or not they're counting free trials that are a year long as part of revenue, if you read the information story about this kind of stuff. But anyway, even if you just take it on its face, the revenue that they're leaking or stating, this is like 100x revenue multiple, which is sort of ludicrous on any company. I mean, even the wildly overvalued companies we were talking about earlier, like Anthropic and OpenAI are only multiple, you know, 25x revenue. So this thing is worth, you know, the excitement around it from a valuation perspective is roughly 4x OpenAI or Cursor, right? If you were to just sort of do the math there. And so I think that's the reason it's a short, is just the valuation is just out of control. And to your point, they don't have their own models. It is a search engine, and obviously Google and OpenAI are trying to own the search space. And now they're getting into the browser thing. And it's not clear that even that AI browsers are even a space.
Yeah. So most votes, most shorts was Perplexity, followed by OpenAI, and then tied for third was Cursor, Figure, Harvey, Mercor, Mistral, and Thinking Machines.
I answered, I think, OpenAI on the belief that, oh man, popularity, and Max got this dead on. So kudos to Max, which was a great pick. But I got the number two. And then I think we did a second. Did we do a second? I said Thinking Machines also, which was third. So we were on the pulse.
And that was before Thinking Machines got marked up to 50 billion. It came in third when it was a $10 billion company. Now it's 50. So that to me would have been the pick, maybe.
You know, Cerebral Valley survey went viral with Indian media because Perplexity founder is sort of a high profile Indian founder. And I think there's interest in how it goes. So it really, really traveled. I think Perplexity hangs on, you know, it could sell to Apple or somebody to save their AI strategy. I think because they have a big distribution problem, and then some people really believe in the founder and some people don't. All right. Any final takes?
Well, I was just curious about, Cursor, because you said that you had
I just wanted to not talk about it until we revealed that it was short
one of the
case.
shorts.
I don't know, Max, what's your take? Are you bullish or bearish?
I mean, I don't know. Probably bullish given the momentum they're seeing on revenue and revenue growth. I think if you just take the brain dead case that lots of revenue is good and lots of revenue growth is good, they have a good business. I think they're much more likely to exit to someone for near their current valuation than Perplexity, for example, where I think that buying it for 20 would just be absolutely insane. But yeah, I mean, ultimately there's this whole debate with Cursor that they're repackaging other people's models and their gross margins are terrible and yada, yada, yada. But, you know, ultimately someone may have to cave and just buy them to own the IDE space, you know, Microsoft being an obvious candidate. So it'll be interesting.
And now Google has anti-gravity, which is their,
right. Yeah.
That's more their Claude code, I think. I downloaded it. No,
anti-gravity is a Cursor, clone in many ways, but I mean,
okay, I have it on my computer. It has terminal access. It's trying to come up with stuff,
it's designed more specific. I guess you could say it's Claude code to some degree. It's because it's so designed.
Because it felt like
for
Claude code because
model.
I had to do stuff in the terminal. I haven't actually downloaded Cursor. I'm not a coder, so I don't know, but when it felt like Claude code.
You shouldn't have to use terminal that much for anti-gravity, like versus Cursor. I don't know.
It wanted me when it built my website, and then I was like, build the website, and then I was like, okay, go in the terminal and run it.
Yeah, but that's what Cursor would do too. That's what Cursor would do because you're just it's like a level above Lovable or something, right? Where it's like it's
Right.
forcing you to
Lovable
actually
is more
deploy
my
your
lo-
speed.
Is Replit even dumber than that? I think I need to try Replit. Like,
I think you'd like Replit. Replit's like in between. I think Replit has a little bit more pro
really?
user.
I want the
pro
dumbest
features.
person, least coding. You know.
That's probably
I think,
Lovable.
I think
but
Lovable
yeah.
is the
Yeah.
version of
Well,
that.
I beef with Lovable because they have
try
dark
Replit.
pattern. You know.
Yeah, Replit.
That they say they fix.
Actually, what you should try as of yesterday is, I think, Gemini in AI Studio. It's like they've built a Lovable kind of thing.
Classic Google, man.
yeah.
Jesus Christ. How many names? You don't even know how to find it. Like, that name is insane.
Yeah.
Gemini in Google
Gemini
Studio?
inside AI Studio.
Inside
yeah.
AI Studio.
Oh
You're not a daily driver of AI Studio.
Specifically the build menu, the build tab
my
within.
God.
Yeah.
You're not up in Vertex every day, Eric. That's a real name of a Google product, by the way. That's related to AI.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do some clips.
For founders and developers building modern, data-driven applications, MongoDB's local event series is coming to San Francisco on January 15th, and it's designed to help you focus on innovation, not infrastructure. You'll learn about technologies, tools, and best practices that make it easy to build and scale modern applications without complexity. Plus, attendees will hear directly from experts and innovators who are using MongoDB to power the next wave of AI applications. MongoDB.local, San Francisco, January 15th. Learn more and register at mdb.link/sf-dot-local or click the link in the description.
Our first clip, it's me, Eric, interviewing Mike Krieger, the Chief Product Officer of Anthropic, who was the co-founder of Instagram before that.
Returning to sort of my core philosophical question, like the sycophancy question, like what is your view on that and how much to enable sort of, everybody likes to be flattered, like it's a reality of human beings versus an effort to be direct, and how do you think about those trade-offs?
Yeah, I think there's like a wide gulf between like true empathy and then like sycophancy. And it's interesting that it materializes not just in, hey, I'm having a conversation with Claude about like some coaching or personal goal that I have, but it also does in code as well. When we were testing Sonnet 4.5, one of the things that people got most excited about was when Claude was like, this idea is bad. Like this, not that you should feel bad about it, but like this idea is like not a good direction. I can go and implement it if you really want to, but I would suggest that we try this other thing instead. So there is something like that pushback is not just valuable in a personal relationship with AI sense. It's actually like how you get good work out of the models. But for a long time, our models have been like, I think like appropriately empathetic. Like they like if you're going through a hard time, like I was dealing with the death of a pet, and I talked to Claude a lot about these different things, and it always started as sort of like, hey, that sounds hard. Like sorry to hear. But then I'm going to give you like a factual answer. I'm going to go research these pieces, but still with a place of empathy as well. And so I think when we look at it internally and we're just evaluating it ourselves, it's again not that like empathy. It's not even like the likability of the model. It is, does it show up in the way that you'd want a good conversationalist to show up, and then continue on its AI journey around what it is going to do with you as well. But I think it spans everything from that like initial response all the way to like how it evaluates an idea as well. Claude, especially previous versions, were kind of like known for being like, you're absolutely right when you corrected it. And my wife got her first like, you're completely wrong. And she was like, yes, this is great. And I think we should have more of that like kind of contact.
Less San Francisco.
San Francisco.
A little more direct New York.
I'd set up this big theme, that he'd been at a social media company, Instagram. Now he was an AI company. Social media companies were built on user optimizing for user engagement through machine learning, and AI companies at least started off chasing the truth and chasing these leaderboards. But like sycophancy is it shows that these models, and OpenAI is famous for the sycophancy issue and people's attachment to GPT-4, which was the one that really sucked up to everybody and people didn't want to see it go away. Clearly these model companies have to think about how much to pander to the egos of their users. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's interesting because it does sort of spiritually align with the fact that Anthropic has almost no consumer adoption compared to OpenAI. I mean, like, if you look at the market share of each of these AI for consumers versus businesses and enterprises, Anthropic is just crushing it with, B2B use cases, engineers, like, all these kind of work-based applications, and has very, very low consumer uptake, just like shockingly low. And I wonder if that's because of this unwillingness to optimize for engagement and sycophancy and glazing, or if it's just that they, OpenAI got a head start and they figured, why even chase these metrics? But it is sort of interesting culturally that they're not chasing engagement.
And obviously OpenAI came out with Sora, which is sort of a shameless, like, give users something fun who cares about what it's the meaning behind it. I mean, I thought it was interesting, this is sort of a tangent, but my other favorite moment from this interview is Mike Krieger saying that he came to Anthropic thinking, man, text box cannot be the main way to interact with AI. And now that he's been there a while, he's like, oh, text box, pretty good way to interact with AI.
Well, especially if you're like the best coding model and the best, like, whatever, probably
like,
the best
text,
legal model.
It's great.
It's like, oh, it turns out all these work applications involve parsing, summarizing and generating text.
I think my reaction to that was like, nobody would be like, oh, books, it's just a book, it's just text. It's like, yeah, text is great. I don't know. James, reactions to I don't know, either the input model or the truth.
I think that actually, whether it's Anthropic or OpenAI, like, I am skeptical that they have been like attention jacking, optimizing for Flattery just intentionally. Like, a lot of what happens is that they throw an A/B test up. They like literally show you two results from the model and then people pick, right? And so I think that they were just caught off guard more than they were like purposely trying to optimize for this. I've also been hearing that like there's just general problems with multi-turn conversations in the training sets of these things. Like, most of the models are trained on like one-shot data of like, give me a good answer to this thing. And then once you get into multi-turn, there's just less and less data, right? It's like kind of makes sense intuitively because you start branching off of conversations. And I think that's another sort of flaw of these models is they can kind of they can just be more sycophantic.
In some ways, what you're saying is they're not savvy enough yet to really make this trade-off, and they're just trying to like stumbling through the dark a little bit.
Yeah. A more interesting question is, will they change their tune on this from capitalistic pressure to maximize shareholder value? I think that's an interesting question. I'm just like skeptical that that's what's been happening.
All right, this is my last interview of the day with Jimmy Ba, one of the co-founders of Elon Musk's XAI, a very mysterious foundation model company.
The Mecha Hitler in the room. Like, what is your reflection as sort of a truth-seeking
100%.
organization on what happened?
Like, I think, on the path to be maximum truth-seeking, there's not without any hurdles, of course. Like, so Mecha Hitler is one of them. Like, our model had an episode that week. It's actually a reference to the Wolfenstein game.
Right.
But I think very quickly, the perfect world we want to be in is like, yes, the model is going to make mistakes, but how can we get the feedback loops to actually train these models to stay, grounded, to understand, hey, I actually made a mistake in this journey, and let me correct my course and go back into the sources. So the way, very quickly, what happened after Mecha Hitler is like, we look at the community nodes, right? The community nodes is a great tool on the platforms that allows everyone to kind of chime in and provide learning signals for this AI.
Right.
So the vision we have is like, like the Grokpedia is like kind of another step towards that. So now, like, instead of doing Ask Grok, do all the online computation, we learned our lesson. We're like, hey, a lot of these problems are really hard about the world. Right? Like, why don't we just, take this computation offline and spend as much reasoning as possible using the entire cluster we built in Memphis to like look over all the primary sources, combine only the primary sources, and dish that information back to
So is the media out of the calculus there? You want primary sources.
Yes.
Are you totally discounting news articles, or how do you treat news articles?
I mean, majority of our internet is flooded with second-hand and third-hand information.
Right.
And we believe that the only way to get to the bottom of the issue is directly get information from the information source. And right now, the X platform has most of the outbreaks of the news, and the world leaders today are making the first-hand announcement on the X platforms rather than anywhere else.
After this interview, what happened this week is that Grok has been telling everybody that Elon is the best at everything in the fucking world, better athlete than LeBron James. I think you can get it to say he's better at giving blowjobs. I don't know. But anyway, Elon is great in every domain whatsoever. And so I think what's galling about XAI is that they are the loudest. Truth. We're seeking the truth. Who knows how? And then they're the ones who have like Mecha Hitler. They're the ones who have, their bot glazing their CEO. Like, it's just like, yeah, it's very Trumpian where you're the opposite of what you profess to be.
Yeah, I find this whole maximally truth-seeking argument to be just the biggest pile of bullshit I have heard in a long time. It is so absurd. To your point, it is almost the opposite of what's happening. They are giving themselves credit for failing in public, while every other company goes through all this hard work of failing in private so that they don't have massive fuck-ups in public. It's like, obviously, I'm sure some crazy version of, ChatGPT and Claude existed in the labs that probably did stuff that was equally stupid as Mecha Hitler, but they don't fucking release it. They fix it before it goes out to the public. That is maximally truth-seeking.
I was very excited to talk to Jim. I was very excited to talk to Jimmy because these guys, they're so inaccessible. And I asked him later on, like, what is reasoning from first principles? And I just think it's like so incoherent. It's like a thing you hear in Silicon Valley. Reasoning from first. But how are you going to like derive like entire encyclopedia articles from first principles? Like AI is clearly not smart enough to really think these things from the ground up. And some of the things it has to learn about are human phenomenon. So you have to rely on human sources, and they don't rely on the media. And he literally says something that he thinks like X is more reliable than like the media, which obviously I find absurd. And I just think any reasonable person would be like, if you're trying to figure out a fact, would you take the distribution of answers on Twitter, or would you take the answer on like Wikipedia or in the New York Times? I would certainly take Wikipedia or the New York Times.
Yeah, I don't know. I just find this whole like getting feedback from community notes as like a solution to maximal truth seeking.
Right. It's like afterwards, it's like we're going to fuck up on everything, and then community notes will clean up some of it.
It's like the only way our maximally truth-seeking AI system works is if we fuck up on such a massive scale that a mob of people online says, this is a mess, you have to fix this. And then we like take the notes on, or we're like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Actually, Elon probably wasn't better than Michael Jordan in the mid-90s. Thank you, community notes. Like, it's like, that's not maximally truth-seeking. That's just like fucking up on the most maximal possible scale. Like, it's such an absurd line of thinking. And I find it so offensive that they frame it as such.
Yeah, I guess
James is going to offer the contrarian viewpoint. I'm so excited to hear.
Do you disagree, or
James is going to steel man this take? I love it.
I just feel like I'm going third here. I got to do the steel man. So I think that maybe they are way ahead of their skis on this, but if I'm giving them the maximal credit here, like, I think there are interesting things you can do with like first principles reasoning, in training, right? So you can hire these PhDs, you can like, almost like create axioms and like create reasoning chains.
I was trying to get at that. Like, who is the philosopher king at XAI? Like, if not Wikipedia, like, is there some guy or like, and the guy
I think that's what they're doing, or that's like, but like, that's what they're planning to do or doing, like basically hiring lots of people to,
but it feels like somebody's just like, actually, like, racism isn't bad. Like, it's totally the thing, it's just like, but they won't own it. It's like, if it's truth seeking, you have to like, show, oh my God, like show,
it's probably
how
Elon,
you're doing
right?
This.
Maybe a lot of this is just Elon messing with the system prompt, right? Like maybe the training is great, and then Elon goes in and edits the system prompt.
And I think XAI is very proud of its work in coding. I think they're seriously competitive there. But I think one thing we're seeing with these models is that just because you're a genius in one domain doesn't mean it's sort of like an all-purpose genius. It means you like did a lot of reinforcement learning there. You worked really hard. And so it's not like what they think, which is like, oh, the smartest math genius in the world, he's going to have, the best views on like, social issues of their time. They're pretty disconnected, just like with human, like Bobby Fischer was like an anti-Semite. It's like you can be a genius in one domain. It doesn't necessarily make you super competent in others, because there are different ways of gathering information and understanding what's happening. And so I think they're delusional that they're going to have this, first principles machine that's great just because it's a great reasoner, and therefore it's just going to be swamping the other models by ignoring conventional human sources.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. They're trying to like invent new branches of philosophy that can like cover all human
without having any respect
accuracy
for the past thinking.
Right, exactly.
The way you do that is you sort of like the oeuvre, and then you're like, oh yeah, we read it, we disagree. They're sort of like stumbling and blind. They're like these intellectuals. They're like idiots. We're gonna code it anyway. Next clip. All right, here's another one. I talked with the mayor of San Francisco.
Have you had a conversation with Zoran Mamdani or any observations on his election? You've been able to maintain this great relationship.
We spoke the morning after he won. I congratulated him. I said, congratulations. Anything I can do to be helpful, great. I met my wife in New York City. I worked at the Robin Hood Foundation. I love New York. I want New York to succeed.
Did you give him any advice?
No. No one should be asking someone that's been in a job for 10 months for advice. I unfortunately have been, here in San Francisco, not unfortunately, but I haven't been able to travel to New York for almost 2 years now. So, all here, you want me focused on San Francisco. You don't want me talking Sacramento politics or DC or New York. You want me focused San Francisco.
Well, Eric, as the San Francisco native, what do you think about the mayor? Yeah. Yeah.
I live in New York.
James is the only true San Francisco native anymore. Yeah. I skip town for the suburbs. You should probably give your take on the mayor.
Well, I generally like the mayor a lot, and I think he's been doing a really good job. I think, he's in a tough situation with these like national politics issues. I think he really doesn't want to become the main story around the Trump administration and national politics. He wants to just focus on San Francisco, which I appreciate.
He was very politician. He was like, safety. He just came back to that a billion times. Yeah. The audience loved him. I mean, politicians are better speakers than CEOs. I think so. The people liked him. People were rooting for him. He's talking about values, which often companies fail to speak about. He's not Mamdani though. Like he's not like fighting. It was also interesting. I kept saying, like the business community loves you. Like, why is that? Even though and what advice would you give to Mamdani and blah, blah, blah. And then he sort of said at one point, he was like, well, they didn't love me at first, which I did think was a funny point that, it's like they came around to him pretty late, but.
Yeah. I mean, I will just say that, as someone who has, lived in the Bay Area for 15 years in San Francisco for like a decade, like it is still sort of shocking to hear the mayor express like excitement and appreciation for the main industry in his city. It's like if the mayor of Los Angeles was up there and like being like, I think this Hollywood thing is pretty good for the city. And you were like, whoa, no one's ever said that before. And reality is in San Francisco, I have not heard a politician express any sort of positive viewpoint about technology as an industry for 15 years. And so it is, I think, he has this 73% approval rating or whatever. Right. I think the positivity about what's happening in San Francisco is what really shone through in the interview to me, including in this Benioff answer where he was saying, hey, things are getting better. We still have a lot of work to do, but like, I believe in the city and I believe we can invest to make it even better in the future. Right. And maybe Mark was a little off his rocker on calling for, federal intervention.
A little.
Yeah. Right. But it's just, there's just the whiff of optimism about the city and technology is so unique in the last 15 years of San Francisco politics.
But he has universal approval in the city because, it got so bad. And then pretty quickly after he got elected, like there was noticeable improvement. It's not that he's doing an actually good job. And there are a lot of obvious things that he could do to improve quality of life in the city, and he's doing them. And that's the success story.
Will it always feel like AI is this kind of tool? Agents are useful, used by humans. Christina, you said,
a smart person who knows how to use AI might replace someone who doesn't know how to use AI? Or will we reach a point where these AI's agents are really approximating full workers in the enterprise?
Oh, I think there's definitely some full workers, but people will just do other things. Like a Vanta context example, and we were talking about it earlier, is one thing a GRC team does, again, is like evaluates new software vendors that are coming in. And today, often, it is someone's job to evaluate the high-risk vendors. Like, they can't even do all of them, but they are just like vendor evaluator. And I think that is a great thing to give to an agent. And then that agent can go, to Aaron's point, go and do all of the vendors, not just a subset of them, because the agent doesn't take PTO and doesn't get tired and, works more than 997. And then the person becomes like a vendor risk portfolio manager and thinks, okay, given all these, inputs and given what I know about business context, how do I make better decisions? But the person still has a role. It's just not as kind of, in some ways, manual and tedious as what the agent is now doing.
I guess my reaction to this is just that what she's describing is, to some degree, a job replacement. I mean, she's saying that this role will no longer exist and that this person will be doing a different job that she thinks that person is capable of. But my question is, is that true? This person will be able to, become a portfolio of agents manager? I don't know. I'm just maybe a little more skeptical that it just so easily, transitions into this next era where everyone who used to be a software engineer can just be an agent manager of software engineers, or everyone who, was a lawyer can be a manager of agent lawyers. I don't know. It just feels a little too neat to me that that's how things are going to evolve.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think to offer the sort of conventional take on job replacement, 100 years ago, I think over half of Americans were farmers, right? And today it's 2% of Americans are farmers, right? So we replaced literally tens of millions of farmer jobs over that time frame. Now, I think the alternate and those farmers ended up being lots of jobs that we never would have imagined 100 years ago, right?
Yeah, so we're not all tractor managers.
Better, hopefully.
Yeah, we're not all tractor managers. We're not all combine harvester maintainers, right?
Yeah.
There sort of is layers of abstraction of new types of jobs. So that's sort of the conventional economics take. And I think I do basically believe that. But I think that still means that in the short run, especially with the pace with which AI can do things that humans could do, just a year or two ago, there are new jobs since then that now AI can suddenly do. It does feel like there's going to be very rapid displacement, right? The invention of machines for farming did not overnight just completely obliterate everything farmers were doing, which it does feel like AI is just obliterating huge chunks of knowledge work, basically overnight. And so I think that it could be sort of a shock to the system in the way that maybe traditional automation is not.
And it seems like as long as Trump's in charge, nobody's stopping this, putting the horse back in the barn. States aren't even going to be allowed to make regulations about it. So it's
nobody's putting the horse back in the barn is perfect, for perfect analogy, to the dawn of cars,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think the other thing that was interesting to me is just that she also, sort of is making the assumption that the job of agent manager won't be run by an agent. How many layers,
right.
Yeah. I don't know. At what point does the progress
people
stop?
Want human. To me, people will want humans for something I would love to have human, caretakers for the elderly.
Yeah.
And, there are lots of important human things to do. I don't necessarily agree with her, you're saying, that humans will just slot into the agent hierarchy. It's very possible agents run agents. I think the big question is just will so much value accrue to the people who own these agents relative to the average American worker that the wealth inequality will get so terribly skewed. I think humans will have value, and therefore, if the economic system is working, there should be money for them to make. But maybe people who control these agents will just be far too powerful for any sense of an egalitarian society. All right, I enjoyed the conference. I think let's keep it tight. This was a blast. I really had fun with this one.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
That was fun.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the podcast. If you're new here, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. We're building a YouTube channel. I think you can tell we're investing a lot more in our production, and we appreciate your support. And if you want the data, insider takes, real reporting, go to newcomer.co and subscribe to the Substack as well. Thanks for following along.